can be done where it's set back perhaps, or in some way not made to look like a four-story from certain perspectives. Good evening, everyone here in the room and watching us on TV, I hope. This is the regular meeting of the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry on Thursday evening, March 7, 2019, in the Village Boardroom in Main Street in Dobbs Ferry. I would like to move to open the meeting. Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you. We have 8 items on our agenda tonight. The first item is to adopt the minutes of the Planning Board meeting of December 6. We just received them at our places tonight.
I read through them, they were fine.
Thank you.
I haven't seen them.
You haven't seen them?
Yeah.
You have or haven't?
I have, but
Any-
maybe you should postpone until.
any
Steve gets
changes?
next week. No, I did not see any
You
changes.
have nothing. They're straightforward. I
Yeah.
think they're straightforward. I would move that we approve the minutes of the meeting, our last meeting.
I can approve.
Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you. The second item on our agenda is 11 Overlook Road, continuation of public hearing for site plan approval for amount of soil to be filled in the grade to the existing wall, and it's broader than that. I'd make a motion to open the public hearing. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. 11 Overlook, is there anyone here to speak to that? Thank you. I can't help you.
While that's happening, George? The easement, the drainage easement in the back,
Yeah,
is there piping infrastructure there that's gotta be maintained?
so yes, the attorney and myself have looked at, the applicants provided some information regarding the easement. And the one furthest in the property way back is not impacted. The one closer to the deck, closer to the house, that is in the fill area, and there's actually a proposed wall in that area. And part of the deck is right now shown in that area as well. And between our discussion with the building department and the attorney, it's probably best to move the deck further away from that easement, so there's no conflicts either now or in the future. And maybe the applicant can enlighten us about what's in there now, or what it's intended for, or what information he has on it. That's pretty much as far as the easement goes. I don't know how much fill exactly is going. The fill increases as you move away from the property, so it might increase a foot or two in that location. I think you showed a profile previously. So the bulk of the fill is further out from the property.
Right, but a wooden deck is easier to remove if something had to be retrenched than a giant retaining wall.
Yes, the wall in there, I think, in that location, I'm not sure if that was, how far away from the house it was, but that gets into the, I think, 2 and 3 foot range. It's not that,
Oh.
we're not talking about the 8 foot. The 8 foot portion of the wall is way,
There's a pretty steep slope there.
yeah, pretty far away. So 2 foot wall, 3 foot wall, might not be a problem to dig through.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. We'll talk about that.
So the drainage easement is just for water to flow over the ground, there's no piping underneath it. It was established in 1962, it was in the original title search, and all of our neighbors essentially have violated it. I mean, there's like, it's supposed to go from house to house, and
so can your engineer or design professional speak to that issue in the next, we didn't prepare a resolution for tonight, so for the next submission, can they speak to that? And talk about how there's no drainage issue?
Well, even the consulting engineer said that, for this particular project, the impervious surface is probably going to sort of increase, and things like,
No,
go ahead and, have the water mitigate.
I'm saying from property to property, he can say, there shouldn't be any issue upstream or downstream from this site. If he can speak to that in any way, shape, or form. And you don't have to answer that, you can just pose the question to him and get back to us.
Just for example, one concern would be you put that retaining wall in and it redirects all that surface water right down the hill into your rear neighbor's backyard,
The
so.
plan is to put a dry well in and have, not only the roof water, but the drainage from, around the yard go into a dry well, which will significantly improve the drainage situation there now. The slope is eroding away because the water is just flowing straight down the hill. I have a little presentation. I can show you guys a little bit better pictures and whatnot. Has anybody visited the site yet?
Well, I haven't walked it, but I've gone by it, so I can understand how it goes down.
Yeah, it's really steep, and even like our neighbors' yards, they all put railroad ties and retaining walls way back when. And we bought this property from somebody who hadn't touched it in 20 years, and they used to have retaining structures there, and I have pictures of how it's been eroded and completely destroyed over time. And so we're just trying to fix this. And obviously regain use of our backyard, because it's literally like
Right.
dominated.
Yeah, well,
So,
right.
the house, even the foundation of the house has been exposed at its almost at its deepest level. The prior owner used to have a walkout from the finished basement, and they actually filled it in and got rid of the steps because it had eroded away. So, I can show you. So, yeah, well, I can give my, I haven't hired a site engineer, mainly because, this was supposed to be a $40,000 project. And I've already spent 10 grand just to get to this point on drawings and whatnot,
Right.
and the site engineer is gonna cost me another 10 grand. So, to say the least, that the process is not scaling with the size and scope of the project. So, I'm reluctant to go and like hire a site engineer for 10 grand for a $40,000 retaining wall. So I'm hoping it can be resolved without, doing that.
I think we could resolve it the simple way, in my opinion, would be you have a 12-foot deck protrudes into the backyard, 12 foot, and that's 3 foot into the easement. So if you were to cantilever, bring your footings off of the easement and cantilever girder there, just at the easement, cantilever 2 feet, you would have 1 foot shorter deck. Not a big reduction, but you'd be totally off of the easement. I think under any easement, any pipe work that had to be done would easily go under the retaining wall. We could undermine the retaining wall without it collapsing, but having footings on the easement, I think, is the major problem. So if you lose 1 foot, I think that's the deciding factor.
That's either do that than nothing at all. My architect did send updated drawings. You guys reviewed them. Was concerned about the landscaping, and we provided an updated plan list and drawing list.
Right.
Hide the walls much
Look at how many people are waiting for the computer to open. It's like unbelievable.
There you go.
All right. So, some pictures of the existing condition, that's a side retaining wall. In this particular picture, you can see it, that it's leaning pretty heavily, it's really bad when you're on my neighbor's patio there. This is a picture of the backyard, hideous, it's hard to tell in the picture, you can see that that's the first picture, there's structure there. It's worthless at this point, but it used to hold up part of the wall. And you can see the steepness of the slope, so this is just looking down, and you can see that our neighbor's house is down there, and you can see where we would want to put the wall, it's about halfway through the property. And it's easier to tell on the computer, but you can see here where that white patch is, that's where the walkout used to be. And the yard used to be basically right up to that point. And we have neighbors down the street who have the exact same layout, and they have the walkout still. So it's pretty drastic how over 20 years it's eroded away. You can see at the very bottom corner here, the foundation has actually started to, the black like, part of the foundation where it's actually showing. This is the front. It's, the original 20 years cracked.
I think we understand, you know, where you're coming from and what you'd like to do, and it all seems reasonable. I think, I can't speak for the board, and they can speak for themselves individually, but I think it makes sense. The key from my point of view is that you get the thing set up so that our engineers, the building department and our engineering consultants are comfortable with what you're doing, and I think we'd be very much prepared to go forward.
Right. So is that what I have to do is basically satisfy the consulting engineer's comments?
He's probably given you, George,
He's given me an extensive list, and we've addressed all of that, just a couple that we didn't have time to address.
Correct.
But part of the problem of addressing every single one of them is that we want some pervious area calculations. We're increasing the pervious square feet about 300, but my architect's not qualified to do impervious area drainage calculations, such as like, you need to hire a site engineer for that. Like that's 6 to 10 grand, okay? You know, and like a steep slope analysis, okay, I get it. We can do that, no problem. But, you know, this consulting engineer is not here, he doesn't live in the village, so I'm like, help a brother out.
well,
So, I mean, I can go forward and get it all satisfied, but it seems a little over the top to require to satisfy a consulting engineer's comments. He doesn't live in the village, you know, he's just following code, and I get it. But, you know, there's a reason you guys are here, is to basically go, okay, well, yes, it's code, but we can, you know, we can do a variance, like a zoning variance for this. We can do what we need to do to see a project forward that is reasonable.
well, my experience with our consulting engineer is that it's an important part of this process, that
Sure.
he can look at
I'm not
things,
arguing with that.
so,
Okay,
Have you been to the Architectural Review Board yet?
yeah.
So, why don't you apply to them at the same time before next month's meeting? And if you have the footings off of the easement, and you have a 330 Coltech in the, not on the easement, on the plan, I think we'd be able to have a resolution ready for you by the next month. So you could
So make sure. nothing's on
redesign the
easement
deck and go to the ARB, look for start for your approval there. And next month, we'd have a resolution ready, I think.
thank you. Before we move on, I neglected, when we started, to welcome Dan Poison, who is the village's new attorney from McCartney Finger. And Dan, we're delighted to have you with us and look forward to working with you over the next several months and years, perhaps. And that's,
Good to be here.
that's great. And I also want to do a thank you publicly to Darius Chesavea, who had been our village attorney for many years and was very important in the workings of this board, and was very helpful to us. And we obviously wish him the best as he goes forward with his career. So the next item on our agenda, item number 3, is 56 Luzerne Road, the public hearing for proposed partial 2-floor addition. I would move that we open the public hearing. Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you. And we have a resolution.
52 Luzerne.
52. What'd I say? 56?
Close.
Actually, whatever I said, I used to live in 56.
That's why you said it.
That's why I said it, I think.
Funny.
When did you live there?
The house to the north.
Yes. The person who's living there now, he's awesome, and he's the best neighbor ever, so I'm sure you will. I apologize for the revised plans. Were just dropped off at the office on Monday, and one revision was made to the last page to the side. What is it called? Anyway, this is the last page with the
This
revision.
guy's
so-
supposed to come.
Yeah.
You don't have any questions on this one?
I think
fill everything else, and
We have a resolution.
after talking to
We should-
Mr. Mendy, our architect advised the site.
Thank you.
That's okay.
I made all the copies, so
Yes, the tree has already been cut down, so we could use of the wood.
Yes, yeah, I have that.
You,
Yeah, no, I have.
oh, you do, okay.
George, you're set on this, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
You can go through this again if you'd like, or alternatively, we have a resolution that we can read to approve it. Okay. Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board Resolution granting site plan approval for the construction of an addition to an existing single-family house together with related site work at 56 Luzerne Road.
52.
52. Come on. 50, well, we could fix up 56 too. Whereas Daniel Vergas and Rachel Danifer, owners, have applied for site plan approval to construct an addition to their house at 52 Luzerne Road and denoted on tax assessment map section 360, block 23, lot 6, and located in the OF6 zoning district. And whereas the following plans and documents were submitted as part of the application, and it lists a number of things that we and our consultants have reviewed. Whereas the planning board is familiar with the site and surrounding area and proposed improvement plans, and at their meeting of March 7, 2019, held a duly noticed public hearing and all comments were considered. And whereas the proposed improvement to this single-family property is a type 2 action under the State Environment Quality Review Act and is therefore exempt from further environmental review. Therefore, be it resolved that the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry hereby grants site plan approval for the subject application, conditioned on the following: 1, all applicable provisions of the village, county, and state regulations shall be met. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, all required site plan and village consultant review fees shall be paid, and all items in the village consulting engineer's memo dated March 7, 2019 shall be addressed to his satisfaction. Yeah, right, I didn't. The following language should be added to the plan: approved subject to all requirements and conditions of a March 7, 2019 resolution of the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry. Any change, erasure, modification, absent reapproval shall be it therefore resolved this resolution of an effective date of March 7, 2019. Before I make the motion, this is to be a public hearing, and I would open the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this? Okay, we'll close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. I would make the motion, and is there a second? Yes, all in favor? Thank you. You're set. We try to, we may be confusing, but we're easy. Number 4 is 4 Cricket Lane, pre-submission conference for proposed subdivision to combine 2 existing lots. Good evening.
And your name,
Well-
name and address.
Mr. Krog, from 4 Cricket Lane, I don't remember I'm representing myself. I'm here tonight, actually, we bought the house in '96. At that time, it had 2 lots, property was subdivided. We never developed it, never intended to. And in theoretically could have 3 driveways right adjacent to each other. And the existing driveway to my house is one proposed lot, the flag lot on the other. So it's really simple, it's just a lot line and is really all I'm looking for.
Do we have a resolution?
No, I don't have a I don't have a
Have a public
resolution.
hearing?
We need a plat.
Excuse me?
We need a plat.
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 There isn't.
Okay, I submitted the map,
Yeah.
Yes, you need a plat with the property line removed.
that's what I submitted. It actually shows the way,
Plat.
drafted. It actually shows the lot, the alternate lot, line, but it shows the existing tax lot. And it has 2 existing lots, lot 1 and lot 2. And then it shows, says proposed lot 1, which will be the combined 1.3264 acres. The light dashed line is
The original.
Yeah.
original line.
I think what Ed's asking for is that line to be taken off of the plat to show.
Okay, I'll check with the surveyor. I know, when I wear my other hat professionally, typically a lot abandonment is drawn like this, and that lot is designated as to be, abandoned. I've seen it called out different ways, but I can check with the surveyor, if he'd be comfortable with that.
Okay.
But
So public hearing next month, that resolution.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, do you want the map revised, or?
We can talk about that with the building department and the attorney and go over the details to make sure everything's on there.
I've seen just, other maps where this calls it, in fact, when I got the map, I called it back in my head, calls it existing tax line, lot line. I think possibly, if anything else, it should be existing tax line to be,
Removed.
To be,
yeah, the managed
abandoned.
work surveyor.
Yeah.
Distinguished, yeah, thank you, okay. But, I mean, I think that's probably the difference, because it just calls it an existing line, it doesn't say what it is, so.
Yeah.
I can, check with their office, and we'll have to find that,
Yeah, okay. Well, I would call, I'll call for a public hearing at our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Item number 5, 108 Northfield Avenue, pre-submission conference for proposed second floor addition and front porch addition.
Are these 2 projects identical?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, they're
very
not
similar.
identical, but they must be this,
Yeah.
one owner,
Happen to be at the same time.
That's crazy.
but they're not one owner? They're different?
No, there are 2 owners. The first one is for the Beckers. Second floor addition. So we're not gonna be doing any real site work here. Our increase will be just covered, will be expanding the existing front porch and putting the roof over it. Second floor, we propose to do a split ranch now. And we propose to put a second floor over.
I think it's a little hard to read.
I think ours, looking at our copy is easier than looking
Yeah, yeah,
at his copy.
We'll make it easy. I'm so sorry.
Mostly just technicalities of the drawings, right?
Yeah. Correct. I've seen the list, it's just a lot of little stuff. I've actually corrected it all, so I hope to get an email to get pre-review, hopefully. But I did a cross-section at the street level,
Yeah.
because I was concerned about the height of the building.
Yeah, these are pretty complete drawings.
Well, your engineer is
Congratulations.
very tough, and I really don't want to upset him.
Get ugly.
You get on the wrong side of the engineer, you're gonna get in a lot of trouble. I hear he works in other towns too, so I'm not worried about that. Other villages, I'm sorry. So the street view was really important to me on this project. It would just happen to be on the other project because it's down the street on the plan already, so I put it on the other plan. Curb line, there's no real impact to the street. And architecturally, keeping the sky plane, we put a hip roof that matched the other side, and we brought it down so that the sky plane will easily clear it without having to do any modifications to the house, not putting plate down, just rubbing it to the ceiling, just leave it properly. Any questions?
No.
Yeah, I'm missing something, maybe just because I wasn't here last month, but what does the existing structure look like?
It's existing structure, this is the addition right here.
I see, so it's
It's a
one
split
story
range.
on the left side,
It's 1 story, 2 stories.
the front elevation, got it.
And
Right.
he's covering the porch there that wasn't open.
And we're adding an open porch, just,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, it just needed something for scale.
Yeah.
It just became a big, empty plane,
Right.
so we
Right.
added the porch.
I should have looked at the next page, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Got it, thank you.
In the effort of saving some money, can we just submit the first 2 pages that needed corrections? And then for, 5 pages?
Fine with me, it's up to
Yeah,
the
would
engineer.
appreciate it. It's just the ARB page and the engineering
Nothing's
page.
changed, that makes it clear.
Sure. Well, I can submit, except for the building department sign, that's, yeah, I'm just trying to save a few dollars.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Well, I would move that we call for a public hearing at our next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. And we'll see you then.
Okay.
No, I'm not. I haven't announced, no, I'm not ready, no. All right, item number 6 on our agenda is 96 Northfield Avenue, a pre-submission conference for proposed front porch addition.
My name is Ed Maron, I'm here to represent the Tories. To add a very small porch, a very small bathroom addition, existing porch.
No, wait a minute, bathroom?
It's a bathroom, there's a.
It's called a front porch addition. Is the bathroom on the front porch?
What's that?
Is the bathroom on the front porch?
The bathroom will be in the old front porch.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, so what we have here is a very small porch,
Yeah,
and we propose to add a room there and create a master bedroom. I'm sorry, this is the master bedroom, create a family room here and create a master bedroom back. Okay, it's actually a decrease in coverage because we're removing the sidewalk. So we have a 22 square foot decrease. I plan to do no problem. This is the porch addition over here. Instead of putting a railing that's non-code compliant, having to replace the whole railing, we're installing a roof that matches the same pitch as the first existing roof. The brick building will match the brick. And we're adding a cold pack because your engineer says drainage is good for the soul.
Certainly is.
do it, maybe I'm confused between, is this a two-family house?
This is a 2-family house.
Two-family house, okay. So which family is getting the addition?
It's a first floor and second floor, so the owner lives on the first floor and that's the second floor.
Okay. Any,
No questions.
no questions? Questions down there?
There's no modification to the actual front porch.
We're taking the front porch, oh, no,
No.
the main porch.
The main
no.
entrance, or the 2 entrances shown
We're
there in the middle
removing
of
the
the drawing.
side front porch.
Got it.
I
Okay.
assume you, do you have to go to the AHRB for these?
For both of them.
So you have that all set up for the next?
I'm gonna make sure you guys are fine first. Follow the rules.
Will there have to be foundation work there, or?
No, that's the beauty of this job, this foundation actually goes all the way through the basement, so we're underneath it,
Okay, great.
so it's got false protection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I would move a public hearing at our next meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Is it okay to go to the ARB?
Yeah, well, please, please.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
You're welcome. Item number 7 on our agenda, if I'm right, pre-submission conference for proposed 3-car garage addition with au-pair suite above, 1 Myrtle Avenue.
Good evening, sir.
Sheriff Scott Stein, Community Development, LTD, here representing the Ostros who purchased One Myrtle Avenue a while back. Very cool house, great piece of property. They would like to do a couple of things to make it work better for them. This is a, the Greenberg, map showing the tax parcels. This is the property, here's Washington Avenue, Myrtle. So it's that large lot, 1.7 acres, right there on the corner. I think, Ron DeRusso's house is back here.
Right.
And these are all those houses that got built kind of around this house and that house back then. So what they would like to do, firstly, go to the next thing, this would be to the survey, we picked up all the trees, rock out property, a lot of rock on the site. And what we're proposing to do is to build a garage addition on the side of the house, three-car garage, family entrance coming in, there's already a family entrance there, but we're gonna expand that a bit with a small powder room. And then we're proposing to use the attic above the garage for an au pair's quarters. As you see in a second, the roof line comes down to the garage plate, so it's kind of trying to tuck itself in. This is, here we have the street, so this is kind of going to the back corner, it's built into the hillside. We're not trying to make it disappear, but we're not trying to have it overwhelm the house. It is fairly large as a three-car garage, so part of the goal here is to kind of make it receive back in, and we pick up the architecture of the existing house, so that's extended into the addition. We're also proposing a retaining wall here. This is a stand of existing trees. We want to build a retaining wall that kind of comes back around behind that, so that we can expand the yard area that's off the terrace, the existing pool. There's a row of 5 good-sized trees here, which we have actually been advised, I will not bet on this one, but the idea that if we do the digging properly, we can actually move those trees out to here so that this edge of green screening is continuous.
Good luck.
Yeah, well, if it's done right, it might work. It's certainly worth a try. We also have another retaining wall that we proposed here in the back, so that we're controlling what's happening now with water shedding down this hill. We're going to have to do a drainage on that. That's all stuff that we'll include in the submission when we're doing it hopefully at the next meeting, dealing with all the engineering components of it. We're basically, this is kind of zooming in on that a little bit, but let's get to plans. This is the existing house. Here's where actually it's the garage, three-car garage, staircase to the attic, ability to go from the garage, walk through an open space, coming to the family entrance. This is the retaining wall that we're proposing in the back that kind of controls the yard a little bit better in that corner. Upstairs, the staircase comes up. Here's the affairs quarters, hallway that comes in. This is an existing bedroom. That's going to become a sitting room for this bedroom, which will be new. Everything else in the house stays as it is. Here's the front elevation. This is obviously a little misleading because it makes it look like it's flat across. This is actually 50 feet back from the front of the house. And on the back, the roof actually comes all the way down to a 1.5 foot above grade. So the idea is that this kind of tucks in and feels like it's part of the original house. The elevation on the side, and this section shows how the roof's kind of tucking in on that attic level underneath the proposed roof. So I don't know if you have any other questions, or, I mean, we can go into detail on the architecture, or we have other things to talk about tonight.
It looks like a hotel.
It's a good-sized house.
Have you been to the AHRB?
No, not yet. This is our first foray. We said when we go to the HRB, between now and
Okay.
How old are their kids?
they have one child who is not yet 2.
Just want to make sure that he's not going to college by the time this is approved.
That sounds ominous.
I'm just joking.
I'm more of a George Carlin. Yeah, the idea is to really make this work for what their needs are. They're
Yeah.
very interesting people, and it all really makes sense when you understand how everything works in their lives, so. It's certainly a large piece of property. We have to do something, I think the effort here has been to tuck it back, so it's not something you really even notice from the street.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting, interesting.
Any other questions?
No?
Not at this point, anybody here? Well, I would move that we call for a public hearing at our next meeting. Second?
Does he have all the drawings he needs for that?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Second.
All in
Can
favor?
we add stormwater retention for next meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The last item on our agenda is 100 Main Street, continuation of public hearing for referral from Board of Trustees for site plan approval for proposed addition and renovation.
First thing, at the last meeting, you asked for a streetscape,
Right.
and I directed people in my office to prepare the streetscape. And they said, what scale should we make it? The other drawings were 8-inch scale. So I said, here, let's just do 8-inch scale. So before you unfold the whole thing, I have a smaller version, but.
No, it's cool to look at it like this.
Good.
Here we go, we'll share
one over here.
Yeah, I feel like,
Sorry, I figured it's like-
well, but we can't all open them at the same time, I don't think.
You could hand these out to the audience, too.
Yeah, I think this one goes all the way to you.
Thanks for telling me to sell them. No, these are pretty great.
And then, so that it might be easier, this afternoon I decided to run off a much smaller version, which I think is easier, but I agree, it is kind of cool.
This
to
is
get a
fun.
sense
No, this is fun.
That's, I mean, they were out there
This is the
for a
whole
long
thing.
time in cold. measuring
Oh, that's fun.
windows and Getting it, together. And Steve Dilly was very helpful, he sent us his drawings for his property, so we were able to not have to stand there and measure those.
Thank you.
So that's something I think that gives us a sense of how things fit in with the newest approach that we've got to the development of this site, which follows from what we discussed, I think, at the December meeting, and then talk more about it at the February meeting. And now we're at the March meeting. We also have a couple of models. I'll just bring the one up that's current. The other one was before that. And kind of maybe explain what we're doing with this. This is the existing property. This has the roof removed. You want to see the roof on that? I can bring the other model up. And then what we're proposing to do is to build an addition, which is a 4th floor, plus an addition on the back, setting back from the street facade, creating 2 apartments that would have roof decks. This makes use of the existing garage as a garage, 4 parking spaces, porch across the back for the 2 first-floor apartments. They keep their porches, although that porch is moving out. We've kept this, I think it's 28 feet, 27 or 28 feet. I think we need 24, which gives us a little bit of room. If we're bold, we could actually think of doing some landscaping and some trees in the gut.
Patty, how would you gain access to the upper apartments?
There'll be one door on the piazza level that goes into the staircase. You'll enter the 2 first-floor apartments, or actually 2nd floor apartments. From there, you go up 1 flight, you enter the other 2 apartments. From there, 1 flight up, and then they have, it's basically like connecting in. The first floor has the whole first floor and a 3rd second floor units have 2/3 of the second floor and then the rest of the top floor. So each one of them is a 2-bedroom apartment. I think they're right around 1,500 square feet. I'll put it out there, though I don't anticipate much enthusiasm for the idea. We also have thought of doing it as 6 units instead of 4. Same massing, but 6 one-bedroom apartments. 2 on the first floor, 2 on the second floor, 2 on the floor above. We know that that's something that's very needed, but 2-bedroom apartments are also good. As a point of reference, this is the 78 Main Street building. This building is the same height as that, if it has the flat roof. There's another version of this that I'm going to show that doesn't have a flat roof, which I think is better, but I can understand where the concern is about, measured height, not really perceived height. And of course, this story sets back from this edge, whereas this one does not.
Right.
So I think, it makes sense in terms of softening this, not having it loom on the street. And I do have some photos that I'll get to in a minute. This is the site plan. This is actually the sheet we submitted, I'll go to the larger version. So what we end up with is this courtyard that could have trees in it. This is the porch, this is that entrance that comes in for all 4 units. Entrance into the 2 first floors, and then staircase goes up to the 2 floors above. The retail on the ground floor stays as it is. This existing structure then just becomes the 4 parking spaces for these 4 units, and there's a pedestrian door that comes in with a staircase that goes up, and there'd be storage for those 4 units in there. Okay, this is the drawing we submitted, and this is the drawing with the roof, the way I like it. And the model shows it that way. So basically what you're looking at is the difference in the height here. If you have a parapet on this that is almost the same height, except the parapet doesn't count in height. If I understand the measurement in this day and age, we're measuring to the ridge on Main Street. So this would be technically a taller building than the flat roof, although the flat roof would look bigger because it would have the wall continuing up as the parapet. So that's something just to be kind of given thought to. And here what I did is I just juxtaposed the flat roof with the pit roof. Everything else is the same. And again, while we've gone a little bit further in terms of the idea of massing windows and things like that, this is still, we're waiting for, if somebody says, yes, that's the one we want, and then we say, okay, let's turn this over to people and get it designed and have it be something real. Does this all become something where the addition feels like it's a continuation of the existing structure, or is there a break line that comes across and the top of this building becomes something that's very different from the base? 2 very different ways of approaching it, both that we can look at many examples being successful. We already start to get a hint that you want something different here on that top floor than just the same windows that you have on the second and third floor. Because from this level, you are looking across the buildings, above the buildings, across the street, looking at the river. So having large expanses of glass facing towards that would be kind of cool. But the reason I think we're talking about this is at the last meeting, the concept was, when do we go to the Board of Trustees? And do we go and ask with a recommendation from you, or do we go before that? Because this, we have the previous design that does comply with the code as it currently sits. So we have that design that's fully compliant, without waivers, without variances, whereas we need to, the Board of Trustees would need to weigh in on those 4 items with this design.
Well,
You need me to review them, or?
I can read them.
I think we've come a long way, and we appreciate your listening to the comments that you've gotten from the board, and I think from people in the community. I think this is, I won't say if we're there, but I think we're pretty close to there from my point of view.
least halfway.
No, we're more than halfway there.
8 more years you got.
We're heading down the hill.
One question I have, go back to the side elevation. 'Cause I'm trying to figure out, it looks like you've drawn a line, Patty, if you look at the model. It looks
Yeah.
like there's a line there.
Demarcating what's new versus what's existing. You know, it could be
But
something.
then what's that pitched, what looks like a pitched roof over?
That's existing. That gets removed.
Okay,
So that's the existing shed roof that's on the back of the existing building. That comes off, we pick up the same concept of that on the new addition. And whether this line, whether the massing articulates the difference,
yeah, whether it's like this,
yeah.
a little bit.
Those
I
are
don't
the
know.
things that we can, you know, that'll be discussion with the ARB. I mean, the feeling that I'm getting in terms of, conversations that have been taking place about the direction people want to go, see the downtown go, is right now it's making things that disappear more than stand out with great qualities and design and excitement and enthusiasm, all that good stuff. Or what I would think. When I've talked with people in the village about it, they're saying, why don't you just do it so it doesn't look like there was anything added? So, I don't know how the ARB feels about that, certainly don't know how you guys feel about it, so that's something we can be talking about. There were questions I think Steve had, at the last meeting. This, I'm standing at Readers. So, looking down and seeing what is there, it's not gonna be very present. It won't be something you notice much. This is the existing ridge. We'd be filling in this little triangle, above that. As I walk further down the street, again, here's the building. So you'd see something that was, you know, kind of carried across there, for a short distance, but it's not something that's really affecting much. Here, you'd start to really see something, because this would be gone, this would be where the deck is on the top floor, and then this would be a little bit higher and coming back. But again, I don't think it's having a presence, that would be disturbing to any of the existing building. Of course, looking back, this building is actually taller, so you get this feeling that, you know, it's actually hard to see from that point. And then, of course, we did a SketchUp model, and because those things always tend to be so fussy trying to do it with this machine. What I did is I took some screenshots from it. So this is kind of looking into that back courtyard. This is the roof on the porch. This is the existing structure restored, there's the garage. This is an aerial looking in at the front building. This is all shown with the flat roof. Again, the garage, looking back from the west, with the decks on the top. Obviously interesting that I didn't notice it until now that, well, no, I guess that's right from the page. But the windows are different. And then this is from the south. And then, of course, on the aqueduct, this is the existing structure restored. So it will block the view to the same extent that it does right now. And when people talk about concerns with losing the view of the river, you can't see the river right now for this building, that building, and the building across the street. So I don't think we're actually taking away any view.
The only, I walked around there too on both sides, and thank you for taking those pictures, by the way. You know, on Main Street and, but the only place that it does block a little of view, which is not that much, is up above the historical.
Yeah, well,
Right, historical.
you'll see, you'll lose 4 feet of that as you're looking. I should have gone back further in that, we could have seen that. I mean, I can do that, for
It's
next,
okay.
next meeting. But the, you know, what happens is you've got that ridge kind of halfway in the middle of this, so you're really getting that, kind of pushing into it. It's one of the reasons that I also think that the standing seam metal roof on this with a hip would be a nicer look, than the flat roof with the parapet. This is from the street looking, and then this is looking back, what you see with that building. This building is a little bit more articulated than it looks. But that is pretty much this, unless you want me to roll out the SketchUp model.
No. First, this is a public hearing. I'd like to move to open the public hearing. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I think I appreciate your being responsive to, I think, the comments that the board has had and that we've heard in the public of. I think there's obviously a great interest in retaining the barn in some form and having as little change to the front building as possible, and presumably making it economic for the owner. And I think this is a huge step in that direction, personally. And I'll open it to the public if there are people that would like to make a comment, but
Steve Tilley, 22 Elm Street, on the left there. I think saving the barn is obviously a big step. It's no surprise that I support that move. And I think it's also no surprise, as I've said in previous meetings, that because of the peak parking issues, I don't think it's appropriate for ILAPs to be granted in, after the recent history and the kind of crunch that we're experiencing. So this is sort of becomes the Faustian bargain, what's saving the barn worth in terms of other real quality of life and planning concerns in the downtown. And they're real. I mean, I'm not the only one who searches for parking, and I see it even on a really cold night like tonight, people parking illegally and searching around. So obviously, I think that I don't actually understand the economics of this development, so I'm curious about that as somebody who does the same kind of thing and talks to a lot of developers. So, but there are a set of architectural issues which I think would be addressed at AHRB and could be addressed here, but I think it would be possible to tuck in more of this the sort of knapsack or saddlebag. It would be possible to tuck it more in and lower the profile. I mean, 1,500 square foot apartments, 2-bedroom apartments, those are 3-bedroom apartments. And so I think that, you could do a decent one for 800. Studios are 450. So I think that there may be a way that you can do dormered, a dormer backpack of some kind, and diminish whatever does get obscured from uphill, and also make it kind of more fit into the streetscape. So I know that the 4th story is an optional item and needs to be set back, and so I think that's a good move. And I've just seen this, so that's really the real concerns, I think, are the planning the parking load that would be generated by the additional units, and large units. As Ed points out, there are already, I think you said the required parking on the site is how many spaces?
The existing is 3.
3.
The required, he needs to keep the 3 and then add whatever, for whatever he puts new. So,
Right, 1.25 for
Yes.
new units, yeah. 1.5. 1.5, okay.
One at a quarter.
So that, anyway, so that's a concern that I think, it's your bailiwick and bailiwick in the site plan review back at the planning board, but, I'll take a longer look at this and
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we've all been spending a lot of time on this, and I think we've reached a point where we need to get the Board of Trustees to weigh in on this and tell us if this is something that they would look favorably on. I think there's so many pieces to this, but there's obviously a lot of interest and a lot of noise about the barn and saving the barn, and it comes with a price. And the price here, to me, seems to be very modest and actually positive. So I think this is a good thing. I'm interested in the parking comments because we just built a lot with 99 spaces that no one seems to want to park in because it's not as close to their building or their restaurant or their office or their store. So my sympathy for parking is lessened by the fact that people just are unwilling to go the extra few steps to use a parking lot that the village has provided, but that's a different argument. Anyway, anyone else wish to speak on this?
I actually have
Yeah.
something to ask. So, in my opinion, Dobbs Ferry is acquiring interesting restaurants and merchants, and will continue to do so as we grow. And when we consider expanding existing structures, we need to be conscientious on how this affects the people that reside in and around the area, which, parking is an issue, and also the persons visiting and supporting our villages. I'm curious to know, since I haven't been involved in the project from how many years it's been going on, is it possible to keep the facade, the rear facade where it is now, and still accommodate some type of square footage that you're looking for? And then the other question I have is, do you need to have the split levels of, say, a one-bedroom and then for one unit and then the next bedroom upstairs? Like, if you combined, if you took away those staircases and gave that to the living space of each unit, would that help as far as being able to make a more consolidated building?
Well, the challenge we have is the increase of value. The choice that's really on the table, although not before this board, is there a way of using this existing building in a way that makes sense in terms of the value of the property? So the thing that would make the most sense economically is you take everything down. Front building and back building, you build a new structure, you get, you'd be able to put your parking inside. You could probably, I think we came up with 12 parking spaces. So you'd be able, it was 12 units originally, the code has changed, so you'd probably be talking of 8 units instead. So it's, that would be the best economic use for the owner. What we've done is we've tried to find a middle ground that doesn't do that. And what we've gone is from originally 12 to 8 to 6 to 5, now we're at 4. So we have 4 units in total, 2 being new. The existing apartments are bigger than what we're proposing. We're making those 2 apartments smaller. And we're making all 4 of them would be about the same size. We've also played with different ways of doing it. One of the concepts is you do a 1-bedroom apartment on the first floor,
Right.
and then you do a duplex above, and have really spectacular units that, I don't think we get what we're getting with my other project, but, we're over $800 a square foot with sales. So, and there's a good chance that that's what this would be. This would end up being 4 units, actually a total of 6 condo units with 4 residential and 2 commercial. And the idea being that that's a good way for somebody to get a lot of value out of this property, which is the person who owns this doesn't live in Dobbs.
Right.
He bought this as an investment. He actually did a lot of good doing that because the previous people had some issues with how well they could maintain the property, and it's been relatively well maintained since then. So the goal is to make, for his reason for doing anything is to maximize, or not to maximize, but to generate a reasonable return on what his investment is. Of course, we can make smaller units. Smaller units are worth less, and at some point, it doesn't make sense to do that, it makes sense to do the other one. I kind of feel like I've already stepped past the line on that. I'm trying to be very enthusiastic about things like roof decks and the extra value that that'll bring and all this, so get people excited about, refer to the courtyard as a piazza.
So if you bring the building out and that courtyard does get reduced, in that courtyard, how many parking spaces do we have?
There are no parking spaces.
So it's just the 4 that are in the barn?
The 4 cars would go into the garage. There's basically, whether you have the addition or not, you don't get additional parking.
And there's no way to, oh, I see what you're saying. So there's no way, even if you came up 1 floor and you could park underneath in that space, it's not
No,
feasible?
the design that we had before accommodated 8 spaces. That was a total of 6 residential units. We finally did find a way of getting the cars back so they wouldn't be sticking out, so they'd be under the building. So that's the one that hits all of the code things. What people objected to in that is that that does away with the barn structure. And while it's lower, has less of an impact up the site, it's.
But even if you added the extension on the building, but still kept the depth of it not extended and had extra parking there, is that?
Well, you need to have a certain distance for being able to pull in and park.
Right.
And you don't have sufficient, I know the concept is there are 3 parking spaces there now.
Right.
The reality is that those 3 parking spaces they've never been approved. And when we went to the village in 2009, I think it was with the understanding there would be no parking on site. And we were given a variance for, I think it was 5 or maybe 9 units, 9 parking spaces. So that, I'm not an attorney. We have a new one here today, good afternoon. So I don't know whether that goes with the property, that we have a variance for at least 5 spaces that we don't have on site. But the agreement then with the village is there'd be no on-site parking. What's happened is the owner has not complained when the tenants have put their cars into that area. And it looks like a parking area, it's asphalt, not particularly nice, but it also is difficult to negotiate. And sometimes you see people backing out onto Elm, which is really not a great idea. So you can't get more parking, no matter what you do with that, if you're keeping the existing structure.
I guess the other comment I have, which I'm curious about, so if the focus has been all throughout this process to keep the barn and preserve this barn, how does that reflect on the front of the facade of the building on Main Street? Does it? Or can we?
No, never, except in the very beginning, we were not touching the front building. So the concept for, I guess, 4 years was that we would be taking down the garage, building a new structure behind the existing building, and nothing would be changing on the balance of the existing building. The change here is recognizing whether, I'm not sure, I shouldn't even go in, I have no idea. I believe that it's got great value. I've been convinced that it has great value. So saving the barn at all costs. So we're saving the barn, and what that says is then you have to do something different. And we've come up with what different is, which works, which, is all compliant with code. The only thing here that necessitates either waivers, I know we can't get a variance because we already asked for it twice. The existing structure, barn structure, does not comply with the setback. My hope is that by using it as a garage, because at one point we talked about converting that into 2 residential units, the idea, which would have no parking then on the site, the idea of keeping it a garage means it's a garage continuing as a garage, and it's a pre-existing structure that we're restoring. So maybe that's perceived differently by the village than when we came to the village and talked about renovating that building, and we were denied. So
Good.
you know,
Well, overall, I mean, I like the extension, I like the way it's set back. I feel like the existing facade doesn't necessarily respond to the barn, which is the whole nature of why this
well, the
project
existing
kind of
building was
exists.
built in 1910.
Yeah.
The barn was built 1935.
But now you're adding this on, so how does the
It
bottom?
was built 1935, it was a building permit.
It wasn't a building, it's a whole other discussion. It absolutely wasn't. The 19th century building, yeah.
I had a quick question on the, I thought that it's a wonderful concept that we're going to be able to save the barn building, and I like the fact that you could actually put the parking in it and then create a plaza area outside, brick pavers instead of asphalt. The whole concept had quality, I think, to it. The concern I had looking at the one walkthrough that we did at the barn was how would you actually protect it, or walk me through a little bit how you can get the 4 parking spaces in there, still preserve the walls and structure that's there, or what did you think would happen when you tangled with making the barn into the garage?
Well, as Steve has pointed out, one of the things that's remarkable about the structure is the way that second floor is hung from above. So you don't have any interior posts. So what you're basically having to do is, right now you've got a very large garage door that was installed into that. I think the method of construction would be somewhat similar. You create the headers, you put in new posts, you basically end up reframing most of that structure on the interior. I think you also might end up taking off all of the siding and then removing the nails and reinstalling it, because a lot of it's not in great shape. Reinstalling it perhaps on the Elm Street and the Aqueduct side, hopefully with the 4 sides you get enough.
Salvaging the
Salvage
lumber,
that
okay.
material. And then having condense mill up stuff that matches the profile, so that the building would look right. And I think having, you know, you're gonna do enough damage to the facade facing the existing building, putting in the 2 large garage doors, pedestrian door, that redoing that and just having it not look patch made, but looking like it was just nice and trimmed and good looking stuff would be nice for the people.
So the garage, though, I'm sorry to I just need to get in my brain that we are actually preserving the garage. And what you described sounds fine to me, but at the same time, we're gonna put a new floor in for the garage car park, I guess. It doesn't have, a slab of some kind, it doesn't have to be as fancy a thing as you're doing a residential structure in there, but, so would the garage have to be lifted up a bit to do that? Actually just excavate
The
inside?
brilliance of this, the epiphany I had at 3 o'clock in the morning that woke me up was, instead of, I've been struggling of how in the world I could convert that building into residential. I know Steve's very confident about the ability of transforming that. My experience is perhaps different. I've brought a lot of old buildings back, but when I go through that building and I see what I need to do to bring it up to code to be a residential structure, I just think it's tremendous.
I'm okay, I'm just talking about now the floor,
So,
it's just,
you've got to, I don't, if I was building that into residential units, I'd have to probably lift the structure, put a new foundation in, create a floor structure. Tremendous cost and something that really, you know, doesn't make sense to save this structure. With a garage, we need to make it stable. We need the garage floor to be in good shape. That might be just, you know, perhaps just hammering out some sections and making a nice coarse surface that we could pour maybe 3.5 inches of concrete on top of, and have it all nice, neat and clean and held together well. The one thing you're losing in this, that we, you know, 4 years ago, one of the things that was requested was that we be opening this up so that the aqueduct's retaining wall would be something that you would then be able to save. Obviously, the garage structure is built not even on the line, it's a little bit past the line. So that's kind of commingled with that existing retaining wall. So our concept of that is to leave that alone as much as possible.
so it is a conversion and restoration of the barn into a garage.
Well, it was built as a garage. gonna be built at 1400.
Okay.
Ever Root Motors Repair Shop. That's what it's built for.
So if it's, that's a legal question, but it sounds to me like it's not a, you're not changing a non-conforming use if it's the same use. So I'm not quite sure that it's a legal question. It intrudes into the setback, but it's pre-existing condition intruding into the setback, and we didn't change, if we're not changing the use, it's for the building department to determine, but my guess is if you're not changing the use, if you can establish that as the use, then you can restore it in place, I would think, without needing a necessary variance, but that's a question. I don't think it's a big issue. The Board of Trustees would have so many other things to deal with that are more important than that, but it didn't seem like a crucial, it seemed like the case could be made that you don't need an approval for that if you're.
Steve gave me great confidence. I mean, when Steve talked a couple meetings ago, he was very, convincing that the village would give the licenses for the investments and, support this because of the importance of the structure. So that's one of the reasons, obviously, to go to the Board of Trustees, is to make sure that they're willing to support that and not have a problem with it, because, of course, the zoning board, as I said, we've been there twice. The biggest challenge we have there is, their question is, would you be able to do something that complies 100% with code? And the answer is yes. So what's their basis for granting us the variance?
Yep. Thank you. I don't know the nature of the motion that we should be making at this point, but I would like to make a motion that we send this presentation and this submission to the Board of Trustees for their review and approval, and send it back to us to take final action.
The word approval was.
I don't know what the right word is, but.
I'm a little bit, everybody should weigh in on this, and so you can tell us what you think. I think, my guess is the Board of Trustees is gonna want more than us just saying, we think it's good enough for you to look at. And I think they're gonna probably want our opinion on the very least, how we feel about each of these four things as a board, and especially the parking.
Yeah.
And whether or not there's a consensus on this board about how much forgiveness there should be around the parking, since I imagine
Good
that's
point.
what they're gonna get bombarded with. And I don't know if we're prepared to have that discussion right here and now. We can if you want.
Yeah.
Or,
Could I get some clarity on what the scale of that parking difference is? It's 1.25 spaces per unit?
I did the calculations on a previous iteration, so it's one per unit and a quarter per bedroom. So if you keep the existing three, how many new bedrooms you got?
Basically what we have is 4 units times 1,
How many new units?
2 new units.
So it's still, how many new bedrooms?
New bedrooms, you'd have 4.
That's one, so
Comes
3
out to
plus
6.
the 3 existing, you need 6. So it's
Yeah.
2 short.
Well, it's 2 short, and if I can channel Rob Lane, we have 4 on-site parking spaces, and then we have 2 means by which to meet zoning requirements. One is curbside parking, which we have 9 of adjacent to the property.
If the Board of Trustees
If
wants
they
to
think
consider
it
that,
makes
or they
sense.
consider
And
a
the other, of
pilot.
course, is the pilot.
and they're gonna wanna know how our little family
Well,
feels about
they're,
that.
that's their deciding issue. They, I think the issue here is, before you go much further, you need some guidance from the Board of Trustees, because nobody on that board has seen this project. This project came before the Board of Trustees, and it was referred to you before any of the current trustees were really on that board. And it was a totally different project at the time.
We're
So,
actually 3
so
projects.
right now, we're sort of working backwards.
Yeah.
The idea is for the project to come in get referred to the approval board to give an opinion and guidance to the advisory boards. Then come to you, and then go to the architectural review board and
Right.
back to the board of trustees with recommendations from
Right.
both of you for their approval.
Right.
Right now, we need to know if they are willing to approve this, and then have you work out the details.
Right, so I'm just trying to game out though, what happens, okay, so let's say that's what we do. This goes just as is, nothing from us, right? In your scenario, we don't say anything. This goes right to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees, like, how much are they really gonna be willing to say before, like, how is that not just gonna bump it immediately back to here? Like, what are they gonna,
They could say,
like, what,
okay,
game it out for me. What-
okay, if we determine that the barn, garage, whatever it was, previously an accessory use, and it's still an accessory use, they agree with that determination. And then they say, all right, so we're saving the barn, that's a plus for us. And so that, in our opinion, is a reason for granting the fourth story and with the setback, which they need to approve.
Right.
So, and then they say, okay, so with both of those things, we're short 2 parking spots by code. They either say, okay, we're gonna think about this waiver or this pileup, or we don't want any project that's short 2 parking spaces, and sends it back to you and says, redesign it because we want it parking compliant.
And you want them to have that meeting where they might come to that conclusion without the benefit of our brilliance.
If you wanna send a letter to them, you wanna communicate with them, that's fine.
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
They
I'm,
need to
No, Rob, I'm with
weigh in
you.
as to what they will approve and give you a little bit of guidance.
You know, we've done a lot of work on this, and somehow we should communicate what we feel are the pros and cons, or, you know, that we're knowledge about this scenario, so that they have that to work with.
Fine.
I would
But-
agree on that, because why, if it comes to us, we would just
Right,
say,
you're gonna-
what does the planning board think about it?
Right,
What does
exactly.
The planning board, is this the best project the planning board can get out of this, you know, so we would just say, let it go back to them and say, what do they think about it? So I think you're right.
it seems like it's,
What does the planning board think about it?
So forward it with a letter of, it's not a letter of recommendation, but maybe a synopsis of what you've
Yeah.
thought so far to date.
and some kind of reflection of whatever consensus we can come to tonight about the 4 things on that slide.
Right. Right.
Well, the first 2 aren't even worth talking about, right? Because that's, if you want to keep the barn, that's, you know, this business about waivers for an I mean, I don't, if you want to talk about it, we can. I don't see the point in talking about the first 2. It seems to me that 3 and 4 are where the real issue is. So I guess one thing that we should see is take the temperature of this board around parking.
I think 2 places, either on the street or is a non-issue.
Non-issue in what sense? It's acceptable to you.
It's a very acceptable.
And
Unless you live there and
and-
then you can't find parking at night when you come home.
I don't know. I mean,
Not my experience.
yeah, that's not my, I mean, I have to
That's
say, no,
not-
there's
I
a
just don't
discussion
think
about the
that-
parking
That's not
problem.
real. You can't find a place to park maybe absolutely in front of your house and your front door,
Right.
but you can park down in the new lot.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I literally just parked across the street
Yeah.
to get here, but that's another, so I guess we don't, unless we commission another parking study to sort of really
Not-
take
No, no.
and really kind of figure out what the nature of the problem is. I agree with Steve. I personally would advise that we find a flexible solution to the 2 spaces, either and let the Board of Trustees, they can weigh in whether or not they feel more, how they want to do it. But I personally would be in favor of communicating flexibility around parking. It was part of the code, if it was ever for a project, this was this kind of oddball, crazy project, is the kind of project for which this flexibility was intended.
If they want to give up the barn for 2 parking places,
I don't know that it comes to that,
Well,
but I don't think it needs to come to such a literal, I don't think it's that literal, or that cause, I don't think that causality is necessary, that's correct.
It's close.
We're counting on we're counting on the developer's representation, that's the difference. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know.
One other item on parking, a lot of communities, when they have municipal parking that's available, will require that they lease the spaces in the municipal parking. So there's a third option, I mean, they could on-street parking, pilot, or a requirement that 2 spaces be at least in our lot.
Yeah.
We haven't done that here as much as I know, but I know that happens a
Yeah.
lot of places.
That's good.
As a resident,
We didn't have the line.
taking off my representation of my client for a moment, hoping he doesn't watch these videos. I don't understand why the village would ever, unless they just really like the person, which I don't anticipate being me, that they would give you the curbside parking instead of requiring the pilot. I mean, you get $10,000 if you require the pilot.
Or maybe
They'll
they
still
can
park
do,
next door.
maybe they can do, my thing is less for us to decide tonight what happens to those 2, and to communicate to the Board of Trustees that we are in favor of getting creative about the 2 missing spaces.
fair enough.
That shouldn't be the thing that scotches the scheme.
Right.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I do a lot of walking around the village in the morning, and that empty parking lot where the DPW used to be, I mean, that's really glaring, even during the height of the day, you know, it's.
So,
Kind of wonder what.
If you go to Hastings, you have to, you know, you park in that parking lot and you walk a block or 2, you know, to get to the store, and it's just, people aren't used to it, I think it'll free
It
up
might
the
be the
parking
expense,
lots,
you know?
in my opinion. So I'm also
No, I agree.
flexible
I agree.
solution for the 2 spaces.
Yeah, I'm less upset about the parking. My concern is the building height. Like, I think the new parking lot does free up more parking. But
In
the
what-
height, I mean, it is like, it might be the same height as this one over here, but it's a lot taller than all of the other.
Well, not if you go down the street. I mean, if you look at the whole street, there's many 4-story buildings as you go on down
As soon
the
as you
street.
turn the dog leg, they're all 4 stories.
They're all 4 stories, so.
You know, yeah, and I walked around, it's really, I think it's misleading to see it as an elevation like that, because when you're standing on the street, it's not as evident. To me, the key is the quality of the architecture.
Right, I mean, I would say
It's
to the
really-
4th story, I would say, my position would be that it's, again, like with the flexibility of the parking, we would entertain a 4th story, but that is subject to the kind of review that the AHRB, you know, that's subject to more study, that's.
Well, we need the 4th story in terms of the number of apartments to make
Right.
this thing work. So it's not that the 4th story is subject, but the
No,
design.
but the apparent,
but
but the apparent height
the-
issues
the
that she's
design of it,
raising are
perhaps.
legitimate.
Yeah, but it's not out of character for the Main Street.
I don't think so.
I mean, there's lots of
Well,
4th.
it's a good,
So guys, for me to step back and look at this holistically,
your building on Main Street.
the,
It's pretty nice looking.
Patty? I'll get out in just a sec. So we've seen numerous, Patty's presented dozen code compliance solutions with on-site parking that were really intrusive and I considered awful. Plus, there's great interest from the community in preserving the barn. Now, you don't get that without paying for it somehow. So what's the least intrusive way we can pay to not have these hugely intrusive projects and resuscitate the barn? And this is the least intrusive, best solution that we've seen so far. So if somebody has a better idea, I'm all for it.
Right.
But right now, I'm perfectly happy to recommend to the Board of Trustees that this is the best solution we'd be able to come up with after great effort.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
That's almost perfect what you said, Alan, and that's what I think would be great to be sent from the board. And I actually wished I had written that down as you were saying it, because it was,
Yeah,
it
transcribe.
is, I think, what is being asked for by Vince here. What does the planning board think? We've had these numerous iterations. You've said it just fine. And if that's the sense of the board, then that's probably what's needed. And if you want to jot that down, or whatever way.
You could just get it off TV.
I'll
No,
pick it up
you could
somehow.
appoint
or
Alan
you
to
could
Somebody
read it.
should compose a letter,
I'll-
a short letter.
If, Alan, if you want to compose it, or I'll compose something and send it around, and,
Why don't you do that?
All right.
Why don't you do that,
All
Dwight?
right.
It's,
That'd be great if you
yeah,
could.
I'll do that.
just to make sure that we're all on the same page, I don't want to necessarily take a vote, but is that,
Yeah, I do think it's the best thing that we've seen so far,
okay.
yeah.
But-
We'll
okay.
use words like it's the sense of the board.
Sense of the
Instead of
board.
it's not
Yeah,
a
yeah.
full final.
Good.
Thank you.
We'll close the public hearing
We'll
and,
refer it.
Wow.
Motion to refer.
What?
Don't close the public hearing because you'll have to have a decision in a certain amount of time.
well, all right, we'll,
I think,
Extend to the
I think you
next-
need to make a motion to refer to the Board of Trustees, and also, after that, a motion to adjourn the public hearing until a
Okay,
date in the
all right.
future. I don't know if this will be back next month.
Okay.
It'll be back next
all
month.
right, all right,
So you adjourn it to the next scheduled meetings by
Okay.
specific date.
yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
All right, then I'll move we adjourn the meeting.
You could adjourn the next.
Yeah, no, I agree with, I
What
agree
what he
with,
said.
with everything he said, I agree.
Hold up this recording and-